Holie and David, they're on the mic, talking about things you gotta like. Holie Trollers is the name. Kelly and David bringing the flame. Laughs and wisdom all in store. Podcasts that you can't ignore. Holie and David, they're on the mic, talking about things you gotta like.
And here we are.
Here we are.
Episode 2, my friend. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Good.
Good.
I'm glad that you're back amongst us and you survived your trip.
I need a detox, but yeah, no, it's great. It was fabulous, actually. There's nothing like getting together with girlfriends.
Right. And so I know we'll kind of maybe leave that commentary for another episode because this is a big milestone for us. Not only is it episode 2 of Holie Trollers, but we have our first guest.
Yay!
Today, and we're so excited about that. We're beyond grateful. So without further ado, I will let you introduce her.
Today's guest is somebody I've known for 25 years. I've known her since she was a young girl. Her name's Brittany Willis. Brittany and I kind of forged a bond with each other because we both dealt with parents that were addicts. And I knew Brittany as a young girl, kind of lost and not knowing what to do. And she's grown to be an amazing woman. And she's going to tell us her story, and we're going to have a conversation about it.
All right. So without further ado, please welcome Miss Brittany Willis. Hey, Brittany.
Hey, Britt.
Hey. There we go.
We're so happy to have you here, and we really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us and share your story and, give some people some hope for the future and what their life can be, even if they're dealing with somebody, a parent that is an addict. So I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, it's my pleasure. It's definitely a big part of my life is trying to find as many people as I can to help the same way that, you helped me in a lot of ways. So I just want to spread that.
I love that.
That's awesome.
Yep, it is. So, we kind of want to know what you've been through and how you've kind of come out the other side, because you live a beautiful life and you have a beautiful family. And as children of alcoholics or addicts, I was fortunate enough to have the full bunch of it. And I there you were too. It's, you're born enablers, and the fact that you've been able to be the person that you are is just truly incredible. And I'm really proud of you.
Thank you so much. I couldn't do it without an influence like you. My other ones were a bit rough, but
yeah.
I am a mother of 5 amazing children. They are my everything. I'm married. We just had our 10-year anniversary. He's a great, supportive, understanding man that I couldn't do life without. I'm currently in college right now for my clinical hypnosis certification and my associates in mind and body psychology. This topic is very, very important to me. I'm part of a nonprofit organization called the Star Foundation, which is actually a place I went, unfortunately, after my mother committed suicide. And I was lost and broken and probably my lowest point in my life. And they were able to provide me with a safe, loving environment where I was able to heal things, not just my mom's suicide, but heal my life and find myself again. And I'm grateful to, be a part of that organization. But mostly I want to get out there and just help as many people as I can that have lived that life or lived that life, and to show them it can be different. It doesn't have to be
a cycle.
What it was. Right.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, we have to feel everything our ancestors didn't feel. But if you are strong enough to make it to the point you've survived it already, I promise you can survive those feelings and survive what comes next, because what comes next is the beauty.
Yeah.
That's
You're
awesome.
absolutely right. Yeah.
That's
It's
fantastic.
beautiful.
It is beautiful. And so, Brittany, I just wanted to start maybe only because I don't know the whole story. I know you and Kelly share this bond, and you have similar experiences around this. But one of the things I think Kelly and I talked about when we wanted to start this up again is we feel like everyone has a story worth telling. So, and I think, even in some small way, if it helps any listener that we may have in the future, and certainly the two of us, I mean, for us to, or for me to hear this story as well, is something I'm looking forward to. So I just wanted to say, I just wanted to start by asking you, how did your family become aware of your mother's addiction, and what that experience was like for you and your siblings?
Well, it was just me and my brother. My dad was never a part of our lives really. And my mom was a very successful woman. She was a high management and giant food, and back when it was the union. She made six figures a year, was a single mother. We had a beautiful home. She had no problem paying the bills. We weren't allowed to have soda in the house. There was definitely no alcohol, no drugs. My mom never smoked cigarettes. She was just, I mean, and she always had herself together. Her hair was always curled. She always had the best clothes on. She always smelled good. And I remember the day specifically. And I came home, I was 7, and she didn't get me off the bus, which was different. That had never happened before. And I walked in the home, and my mom was drunk. And I'd never seen my mom drunk. I didn't know what had happened. I didn't know what was wrong with her. So I just kept asking her, how do I help? What do I do? What do you need me to do, Mom? And basically it was, help her in the bathtub, help her out the bathtub, help her get in the bed, hold the puke bucket.
Wow.
The shake start, get her more alcohol. And then she started ordering prescriptions off of line, as well as seeing her doctor, who I believe was just a drug dealer. And that was back in the 90s. Obviously, Oxycontin was a huge thing. And I remember her bottles being like this big of them. And she would run out within a week, which came with serious withdrawal symptoms. And I was the one that had to handle that. Lots of psychosis. When not doing the drugs, it was the alcohol. And then it just continued.
So
Yeah.
it sounds like it definitely took a toll on you and your brother. Now, was your brother younger than you, or
No, my
oh,
brother's older than me.
he was older? Okay, and so any idea like what led to sort of the initial abuse? I mean, was there some
Yes.
kind of life-changing event that happened to her?
Yes. So I was not aware at the time as a child. Eventually was aware. But my cousin had gone to jail for doing some crimes, and my mom was holding money, or supposed to be storing money for him for when he got out in 10 years so that he could have a life. And obviously that money was not from good sources. And apparently, from what my mother explained to me, I don't know his side because I don't speak to him, but my mom said that he was telling people in jail that she would do the same for other people. And my mom was like, absolutely not. She ended up gambling all of the money away, and it was about $500,000. In
Wow.
which he, in turn, he wanted to kill my mother. And my mom's gambling addiction had begun before I was aware. She would do these weekend trips, and I didn't think anything of it because prior, we'd go to my aunts or my grandparents, and she would go to Jamaica one time, or she went to like a girls' weekend trip, like just normal things. for her to get away, and we would stay with my aunt or my grandparents or my, whomever, and no big deal. But they got more frequent, and it was actually not these trips. She was going to Atlantic City,
Mm.
and losing everything that she had ever worked for and more.
Wow.
And our house ended up going into foreclosure. And with that, my grandfather came in and bought the house from underneath my mom. And my grandfather was not a good man. Um, in doing so, he had to fix the house to resell it to get his money back and give my mom's her proceeds. But he also started sexually abusing my mother again, like he did when she was a child. When that happened, my mom had never got sober again.
Wow.
Yeah, I remember Brittany. She would, because she was best friends with my son, and I mean, it broke my heart because I was actually going through my mom still drinking, and living with me and going through that. And then here's this young 11-year-old that, been up all night because she was cleaning up puke or, or didn't have any food or, and she would spend a lot of time with us. Yeah, I mean, it was a repeat of life, but, I took her in. She's mine.
Right.
but I mean, it was so sad. I mean, we would spend hours and hours talking to each other, and me trying to explain to a young girl, your mother loves you, but she's lost, and it's just a very difficult thing for, especially a young person to understand. It's not you. You can't fix it. You can't, and
Right.
that's why I said in the beginning, you're kind of born an enabler because you become the maid, the cook, the person
Right.
that cleans up the garbage, or, I mean, it's just, you're like
Pays the bills.
yeah, I mean, really, she
Yeah.
was doing all of that. And then the house was lost and she was going to Tennessee and,
Wow.
and
That's,
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, it's incredible to have to deal with that at such a young age. So, I mean, obviously, your mother lost her job at some point,
Hmm.
um,
yeah.
and so it's incredible. It seems like the things just kept stacking on top of her. It was the alcohol, the drugs, but then it was the gambling, which I'm
Yeah.
sure just compounded everything.
Yeah, she was declared mentally insane by a judge, and she was given Social Security disability, and she got a substantial amount because she worked for the union,
Okay.
and she got all of this back pay because she had applied years prior, and they denied her, and they shouldn't have, and so she got this lump sum, and it was like 300 and some $1,000,
Wow.
and life was going to be all right again, and everything was going to be fixed, and yeah, no,
Yeah.
that didn't work.
Yeah. So I was just going to say the money didn't necessarily fix anything. It probably just made
Nothing.
things worse.
Hmm.
Well,
Well, it enables you to do more of
More.
what you actually want to do.
right.
Um, which
Right.
unfortunately, it's interesting you said about your mom being declared mentally insane. My mother wasn't declared mentally insane, but, I mean, mental illness feeds addiction. A lot of
Hmm.
addicts, they do have mental illness and
Yeah.
they try to medicate themselves. That
Yep.
is extremely common. And she's right. I mean, back in the 90s, unfortunately, Brittany knows this. My ex-husband, he succumbed the same way. He had back injury and then he got hooked on Oxy because she's absolutely right. They'd give you big bottles of it and be gone in 2 seconds. And unfortunately, he lost his life from addiction as well.
On the same
It's,
day.
yeah,
On the same day?
Yeah, 1 year apart on the same
yeah,
day.
Oh my God.
yeah. So it's kind of crazy that Brittany's best
Yeah.
friend, my son, and,
Right.
and, yeah, it was, yeah,
Wow.
it's something.
That's
Yeah.
it really is.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because I'm sure it must have been nice to have Kelly as sort of a support system, and Sean as well. I mean, someone your own
Hmm.
age. You all were the same age, correct? You and
Yep.
Sean? Yeah.
Yep.
So
We
that,
are
I mean,
3 weeks apart.
Yep.
so I was gonna, that was kind of a lead into my next question. I was gonna ask just what kind of support systems you had. I mean, was there anything other than Kelly, um, in terms of support, or was that pretty much it?
Hmm.
Okay.
For a while, you did have some family that tried. They weren't super successful, but they did. This is a young lady that literally just pulled herself up. I mean, she pulled herself up. I mean, whatever
Sure.
I could pepper in there is wonderful, but
Right.
um, yeah, she learned the lesson. You know, I don't know if Brittany's the same way, but I know when I became a parent, I was like, the one thing I could screw up everything. That's not going to be the thing I screw up. I'm not going to be an addict. I'm not going to put my children through that.
Right.
Brittany, were you pretty much the same when?
Yep. Around the same age, right?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, we're both were you 18 or 19? I was 19.
I was 18.
Yeah. So,
I turned 18 in December, and he was born February 7th,
yeah,
and so I was barely 18.
18. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
But she
Well,
did all that herself.
that's yeah. That it's funny because I think about some of the hardest things I had to deal with when I was 18, and there was nothing, right? I mean, I can't imagine having to go through all of that, and and being put in that position from the time that you were 7. Um, I mean, I don't know how people can get through that, but it's amazing that you did. Um, and obviously, it speaks volumes about your strength. During that time, I mean, were there any moments that maybe you felt hopeful about her chance of recovery?
Yeah. I came home from school one time, and she left a note on the counter. I went to rehab, and I'll be back in 90 days.
Oh wow!
Unfortunately, there was good and bad to this. Like, there was no food, and water got turned off, and things
Wow!
like that. But she went to rehab, and like, I had all this hope, and I was excited, and she came home from rehab with a man on the America's Most Wanted list. That was a bank robber.
Oh my God!
This old man that had polio, and they moved in with us.
What? Oh, that's
Yeah.
Lord.
Addicts fall in love very quickly and easily. If they can find somebody to have, I mean, I know from experience with my mom, I mean, if anybody showed her any attention, that, you
Right.
know, that, because it's hard. I mean, addicts, they feel unloved. Even
Yeah.
though you're loving
Yeah.
them and trying to help them, they feel completely unloved or unlovable. I'm not sure which one,
I
but
think it's
probably both.
unlovable because,
Yeah.
I mean, I think I did everything in the world to try to get my mom to understand, like, she was loved and supported all of my life, and she could never receive that. And I finally learned that had nothing to do with all of what I did. Like, it was
Right.
just something she wasn't capable of, and that's not on me.
No.
And it's sad, but it has nothing to do with me.
Wow!
Yeah. Yeah.
So you have this substance addiction, and then you have on top of that you have the behavioral addictions like the gambling. I mean, the relationships. I suppose that could be an addiction, like you were both
Oh, yeah,
saying.
it is.
I mm,
Well, I think that's an example. I mean, you know, as children of addicts, you start to feel unlovable. Like, why don't you love me enough? If you love me enough, you wouldn't do this. So
right.
it's a very difficult thing to actually accept genuine affection and love. And you just really don't trust it because, you know, somebody could be sober for half an hour. I love you, you know, because listen, addicts aren't terrible people. The addiction is terrible.
Sure.
They
Right.
turn people that are lovable into people that are very difficult to love. I mean, it is true. I mean, it's
Yeah.
a
Sure.
very conflicting thing for a child and of course for the addict, you know,
Yeah.
but it's very difficult. But
Yeah.
you figure out coping mechanisms, you know.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Yep.
Of course,
Yeah,
a lot
I
of that would
learned.
get you in a little trouble.
Right. Is that an inside joke I know nothing
Uh,
about?
yes,
I
because
mean,
my son is perfect, and Brittany tried to ruin him. I'm only kidding. Well, you kind of reflect the behavior that's around you. I
Sure.
mean, you know, when
Yep.
you see certain things, manipulations, or, you know, you kind of reflect that, but also you rebel some because you're the one trying to keep everything together,
Right.
and you want to go out and live life. You want to be a teenager, so you do it really hard.
Sure. Oh
yeah,
yeah.
that was a huge problem for me. I mean, my mom had this spout in my life where she swore, I believe it's called agoraphobia. But she swore that there was these lines and she couldn't leave these lines. And if she left the line, she was gonna die. So like I had to
Mm.
bring her a bedpan and food and make sure her body didn't move out the lines. But you couldn't turn the TV on because the government was listening, and I couldn't leave the room because then they would come in and take her. And so I stayed in this dark room for such a very long time in this torturous way. If I got out of that room, oh, whew, bye. I'm about to go do everything I can to
Right.
feel anything but like this.
Yeah,
Yes. Let me
I
go
think
live
that's
my
the point.
life.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
you do. I mean, you make reckless decisions. You are not good to yourself because you're not kind of used to being treated well, and,
Sure.
and so it's, yeah, I mean, you do. Thankfully, Brittany and I both have come out the other end, and I think we're better people for it. Um, I could speak for myself, and I know Brittany, so I could say, I mean, the empathy and the compassion and the patience. Um, yeah, I mean, you have to be all those things. It's just who you become.
Right.
Or you go the opposite way and you just follow the same trail. I mean, listen, addicts breed addicts, and we could have both very easily become our mother's daughters completely.
Sure. Yep.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, my bloodline, I mean, her entire family, every last single one of them is an addict of some sort. Um, like it's sad. It's very sad. I mean, most of them are gone now. Unfortunately, in
Mm.
the past like 8 years, I've lost like my entire family because of the life they live, and I mean, I don't understand it, but to each his
I
own,
think
I guess.
that's an important thing to note, that like as the survivors of addiction, because I do consider myself a survivor of addiction, my mom's addiction, but I was thrown in that chaos. It's you just you it's so hard to see outside of that tunnel of what your life is. Um, and I think Brittany and I know that I've been very blessed with really good people, David's among them, that were very supportive. Yeah, no.
Yeah. Well,
And I
Um,
have Sean.
yes, you
yes.
do.
There you go. Well,
Even though me and Sean were supposed to get married, and then he just decided to be gay.
Yeah, I know, son of a bitch. Oh wait,
I
I'm the bitch.
know.
Never mind. Don't say that.
Well,
Son of a.
I mean, would it be wrong for me to stay? There's still time, or is
No,
that,
it's wrong.
there's
No,
not
he
time?
tells
No.
me
And
all the
she has
time.
5
Right.
children.
Right,
Yeah.
I know. I know.
I'll
trying
never
to.
forget Brittany calling up from Tennessee. And she's like, I'm going to come see you. I'm going to come stay with you. He was like,
Right.
by the way, I'm
Yeah.
gay. And Brittany was devastated. Not that they ever dated, but he was her person that she
Sure.
could
Yep.
rely
Yeah.
on,
Yep.
So,
Yeah, he was my like Boy Meets World to Corey and Topanga. Whether he liked it or not, he was getting married.
That's great. I love that. I
yep,
really do,
yep.
and I love that you all are still very close. Obviously, he was a big part of your life, and still is, and that's.
Yeah.
I mean, those are the things that you carry through, and I'm sure you're very grateful for that.
Well,
It's
let me say something very
Sure.
interesting.
Yep.
That,
Yep.
Brittany had moved away, and she had, we had lost contact. And interesting enough, we met up with Brittany again. How long was it? It was like 7, 8 years, maybe. It was a bit because Cam was young.
Yeah.
But we met up at a funeral of a mutual friend of Sean and Brittany's that died accidentally by taking
Oh, by
something. We
overdosing?
don't even
Oh,
know what. This was a very straight, narrow girl, and she took a pill and died. And we met Brittany at the funeral. And I mean, I was very sad for the passing of this young lady. But I saw Brittany, and it was over. I mean, that was it.
yes. Yeah, yeah.
And that, yeah, she's family. So,
Yeah, that's
yeah.
great. Speaking of family, and you, I know Brittany, you touched on this a little bit, and Kelly, you mentioned it too. I I certainly understand mental health issues in the family, but this isn't a time for me
No.
to necessarily share my story, but because it's more about Brittany's story, obviously. But I think I often wonder. I often wonder about family history, and I often wonder why people don't share that with
Yeah.
their children. And obviously, maybe it's a generational thing, and I think there's a lot of stigma and shame around mental illness and addiction. Even, I think people individually or even as a family might perceive it as weakness in some way, as opposed to a medical condition. And then I think there's the fear of judgment. Um, but I do wonder, for you, Brittany, and also Kelly, like how do you move that forward? How do you change that? How do you? I mean,
Um,
Brittany, do you talk about that with your
oh
children?
yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Probably younger than most would recommend, but it is what it is. It's very intense in my family, and they need to understand that it's genetics,
Yep.
and you are not that you are going to have this, but you are prone to this if you live a certain
Right.
lifestyle. If you go out and you're partying, you need to understand that alcoholism runs so deep in your blood. And if you go out and take drugs, you need to understand that addiction, to whatever drug they could put their hands on that isn't even for a human, is is so deep. You need to understand it takes one time to change your life, and you will never be the same person again. And I mean, I'm constantly preaching that, and even things that I'm learning now in college. I tell my kids, you've got only 12% is your conscious mind, 88% is unconscious. Like, you need to understand your subconscious is going to lean towards things naturally more than your conscious is. And just, I try to give them as much depth, age appropriately, with each one, that it's very, very, very prone. And if you start feeling sad or you're having bad thoughts, you need to come to me, and I'm here, and we're going to take whatever steps we have to take, and I'll take them every single way with you. Like, you're not alone. Don't be ashamed. I mean, even when I went away for mine, I was very open with them, and I said, I'm lost. I'm sad, and I can't get unsad. And mommy, it can't be the best me when I'm like this, and I got to go get some help so that I can be the best me. And I want you guys to support me. And I'm sorry that you had to see this sadness, because it was sad. I mean, I was
And this was after
devastated.
you lost your
Yeah,
mom. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I
Which,
mean,
how long ago was that?
it will be 4 years next month.
And how long
And
did it take you to actually seek out that help when you were like, I can't do this by myself. My husband can't, like, I can't fix it myself.
she died in February, the end of February. I was there in October. I found myself ready to just jump out of a moving car. My guilt, because I had set a hard boundary with her that I did for the first time in my life, because I had sent her to a dual diagnostic place in California. And I said to her, you have to complete this program, and you got to go to a halfway house. You have to continue on. And if you don't, you can't have a relationship with me or my children, and there will be no contact. And unfortunately, she left the program, chose to move to North Carolina, which unfortunately is where my stepdad overdosed and died in her arms. And I said I knew it was going to happen. I said, you're going to go there and you'll die there, and I'll wait for the call. And then the call came, and she was gone. And I suffered with a lot of guilt because it was my mom's 52nd suicide attempt. And the 51 before that, I was there to make sure she'd lived. So I carried her death on me for a very long time. And it took me a very long time to realize that it had nothing to do with me at all.
I think that's an important thing that people don't understand is the guilt that you feel in setting any kind of hard lines. I mean, I had a little bit the opposite. I mean, I set that hard line with my mom and bought her a trailer and said, have a good life. Like, I'm done. I'm finally done. And I was a lot older than Brittany when that finally happened. And then she got ill and she moved in with me, but she was sober for 8 years before she passed away. And it's the only block of time that I've ever had with my mom. Unfortunately, at that point, she was very ill, but those were the best years I ever had with her. And she had a stroke and a heart attack, and she had Alzheimer's, and she had dementia, and she had COPD. It was like just a laundry list. But interesting enough, what she was also diagnosed with was schizophrenia, bipolar, all these diagnoses that she originally, when she started taking pills, she was going to doctors and saying, something's wrong with me. Something is wrong with me. And then she started down the pill game, and they just started, here you go, here you go. I remember as a kid, there would be notebooks where she would write all the doctors so she could go from one doctor to another to another doctor to skip.
Shopping.
Yeah, doctor shopping. And then, the doctors get wise eventually. And then the alcohol comes in because that's easy to get.
Well, when you have a mom that seduces the doctors, they tend to not...
cut you off.
To ever cut her off, no matter how many times she overdoses or, flies off the handle, or this is her 4th script this month.
It's kind of amazing what doctors used to do. I mean, and just they just pour them down your throat. That's why people are like, why don't you take a Xanax? I mean, it started because of, women being hysterical. And so, okay, let's get them going on that then,
Sure. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And I just got my mom's medical records. It was, over 4,000 pages.
Oh, wow.
And this one facility that you're familiar with, Kelly, Snowden.
That's it. Yep.
I'll be
my
happy.
My mom was there a bunch of times.
My mother had a frequent flyer pass.
Yep. My mom too.
But reading through the notes on one of my mom's days that she was getting ready to leave, she begged to stay. She said in the notes, it says, patient states that if she leaves, she knows that she's not safe. She only feels safe here. She does not feel safe by herself. Discharging patients.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that's part of the problem is our mental health system and the support, and
it's broken for sure.
It is. Yeah.
It's disgusting. It makes me sick.
Yeah. I it was funny because when Kelly said we were going to do this tonight, I thought, do I go down the rabbit hole of trying to find data? Like what kind of data? Because I love metrics, right? I like to read about that kind of stuff. And I thought, and I didn't, I held off because I was more concerned about hearing your story, but it would interest me to probably go down that rabbit hole a little bit. And I'd be interested to know, what the dollar to dollar is, spent on mental health care in this country versus, other
what's
types
billed.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Right. And other, and things like physical care, like, hospital stays or, whatever we do to stay healthy other than our minds. But I wonder, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I just had a thought, I do wonder, how often, sort of substance abuse is treated as a crime versus, an illness or a public health issue. And I don't, and certainly if you don't want to talk about this, like, did your mom
Oh
have
yeah,
issues with
with law.
criminal behavior? I mean,
Oh
was she
yeah,
arrested or put in jail
yes,
or?
yeah, multiple times. But she was let right back out because my mom's great my great uncle, so my mom's uncle was the Commonwealth attorney where we lived. So
Oh
they
my
saw their
gosh.
last
Wow.
name and they said, "Oh my gosh, sorry for wasting your time." And I'm like, "No, no, no, no.
No, don't
Keep
you-
her.
Lock,
right.
Keep
lock
her.
her up."
Keep, oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
Like,
Well,
Yeah.
unfortunately, when they are, that's the one place, like my children's dad, the one place he got sober was in jail. That's where he got sober. And then when it got out, it was a different story. But yeah, when they're in the rehab, it is literally, or the detox or whatever, it's the only time you breathe. It's the only time you're like,
Sure.
it's on somebody else's hands for a
I can
minute.
sleep.
I can sleep.
Right.
I'm not
right.
worried about my phone ringing at 2 o'clock in the morning. I mean, it is a breather. But yeah, I mean, Brittany's mom was in and out. My mom had been to so many rehabs. It's not even funny. Detoxes, the place that she's talking about. She was a frequent flyer. I mean, she would go into the hospital because, whatever it is. And I mean, just immediately, she was blacklisted in the hospital. So when she had
Oh,
when she had her heart attack, they wanted to release her. She had a major heart attack, and they're like, she's drug seeking. She's only drug seeking.
Wow.
So they wanted to let her go. And then when I brought her home that day, and she had a stroke again, she's drug seeking. I'm like, I was with her. She didn't do anything.
Right.
But so I mean, it just comes like, oh, you're
Oh
trash.
yeah, and
Get away.
literally it says on my mom's records, frequent drug seeker.
Yeah.
Do not prescribe narcotics, but then you go down the list and whatever doctor she's able to woo in, she still got them. And
Yeah.
I mean, when I was going through her things after her death, I still found morphine pills,
Mm.
and I'm like, and she was,
Yeah.
10 days away from starting a ketamine treatment.
Mm.
That was paid for. That was like $10,000, and she was right there to try to get rid of some of that whatever she was holding on to. And my belief system, I mean, a suicide attempt that had happened years prior, I feel like she got hypothermia during that, and her brain, she was in a coma. And from that attempt, I don't feel like she was normal at all,
Mhm.
or like the brain didn't function
Oh,
correctly.
after the coma.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she just did like she would talk to air, and I'd be like, "Who are you talking to?" And she'd be like, "I'm not talking." And I'm like, "Bitch, I just watched you talk."
It's very frustrating to just watch somebody slowly. Brittany's mom had so many suicide attempts, and my mom had too. And I could tell you that, and this is hard, but I sat on the side of the bed when I found her, and I sat there and I thought, do I just want it to be over? Like, do I want to call 911? Do I
Right.
just want it to end?
Right.
Of course, the suicide note that said that I'm a terrible daughter didn't help anything, but but yeah, I mean, you're
Wow.
just like, and then when they die, it's like, oh my God, what could I have done? Or,
Sure.
and you feel
Yeah.
this guilt, like
I didn't think
You're
I'd
part of it.
care. I didn't think I'd care a bit
Yeah.
if and when it happened. I mean, the last
Right.
word she spoke to me was, "My death will be on your conscience," and I'm like, "Bitch, please." And but
Yeah.
then she's gone, and I'm like, "Damn it, that
Yeah.
shit's
Yeah.
on my conscience."
Yeah, exactly. Right. She
God
tried
damn
to
it, she
tell
was
ya.
right.
I know, right?
She was right about something. Shit, why did it have to be
Oh my
that?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's such a mind.
Yeah.
It's a
Well,
mind fuck. I mean, you just.
oh my, I can't even imagine. And I know you can't put a dollar amount on the emotional toll that you went through, that your family went through, and what you saw her go through. Oh my God, excuse me for a second. Sorry. Oh my God, I just got the feels all of a sudden. Anyway, I and maybe there's not a number you want to put on it, but I do wonder, like, all of your mom's treatment,
Mm.
what does something like that cost? Do you know, is that $1
It's
million?
insane. Oh, it's
Oh,
probably
Um,
more. It's much
well,
more.
it's
um,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and
I mean,
so
just one rehab, just one for
right.
90 days is upwards of $60,000.
Jesus,
Yeah.
right. And so
I mean, my
Yeah.
did
mom had been to over 20.
Right. Yeah.
so how did who pays for that? I mean, did she
Blue
have the
Cross
money to,
Blue Shield.
Yeah.
and
Thank you. Yeah, they do.
so okay, wow. I'm gonna backtrack just for a second. The reason I got choked up there for a moment, and I didn't think I would, is because and this is totally different, but I remember when my oldest son Quinn was going through his cancer treatment,
Mm.
and it was only 4 months, and it was into the six figures. I mean, that's not what we had to pay, but when you think, and again, you can't put a dollar amount on the emotional toll that it takes on people, but I do often wonder. I mean, because I could see how someone could easily be bankrupted, with an addiction problem like
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, a lot of, I mean,
I mean,
many homeless people,
they're
you
already
know.
bankrupt before they get there. But
Yeah.
oh, right,
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
right.
I
Because
mean,
it's
my mom, she went to a 5-month program, Hazelton, very famous. Her husband paid for it, paid over like $300,000.
Jesus.
And he was an addict as well. And he picked her up with a vodka bottle in between his legs. After paying all that money, her being gone for 5 months,
Wow.
addicts together are
Oh,
really
right. So
fantastic.
so he's like, "You're out. Let's start again," kind of a
Yeah,
thing.
let's just
That's
start it again. You had a clean
that
slate. Now let's go running,
that's
my
ins-
and
that.
mom called them dry spins.
yeah,
Mm,
yep,
So
yeah.
so I can get high again.
Yeah, right. The high's even better. Exactly. You don't need quite as much. You can just, yeah.
Yeah.
mm.
Yep. Cleaning out
Well,
the laundry.
right, right. Well, I think I think one of the things that makes me happy about your story is that it seems like you're putting a stop to that sort of intergenerational trauma. It's
She
not going to
is.
continue, and it's not going to be handed down to your children. Which for you to come through the other side the way you have, and again, I don't know you like Kelly knows you, but to hear the story it's amazing. It's phenomenal, and I'm glad you're in a spot where you are now, and you've got a great family and wonderful support. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Thank you.
no, you're welcome. I'm a little bit at a loss for words.
You
Um,
sound like the therapist on the first
no,
segment. Um,
Like,
well,
they're
and
yeah,
like,
just
what?
tell me.
no,
Wait,
and
you're not doing drugs?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
um, so when you talked about her multiple attempts at suicide, and obviously when you got the call that she did pass away, and I don't know, I hope this is an okay question to ask, but when someone makes that many attempts on their own life, is there a particular way they always decide to do it? Is it do they try to
No.
overdose? Do they
My
try to
my mom tried. Lord knows she tried to die.
Yeah.
She did things that she should have been dead.
right?
Her first attempt, she cut the main artery of her leg open and laid in a bath and took blood thinners. Um,
Oh my
so if it
gosh.
wasn't for me at 9 years old knowing how to do a tourniquet, she wouldn't have lived.
Oh my God.
But her attempts were not just like, let me just take some sleeping pills, knowing that sleeping pills alone don't kill you.
And you need an elephant's worth to kill somebody on when their tolerance was just insane.
Oh,
Oh
so
yeah,
high. I see what
Oh
you're
my
saying. Right,
gosh, yeah,
right.
so
yeah,
insane.
Right. So interesting, right? So because I have heard, like, for instance, an alcoholic, it's not the amount they drink that's necessarily going to kill them. It's when they stop. They can't just go cold
correct.
turkey because
Oh
they're
Yeah,
yeah.
no, you'll have
But that
someone
was
go into
never part of the
seizures.
equation. Stopping to kill yourself? Come on
right.
now.
But and again, if this is not the question to ask, let me know. But it's such an interesting story, and I wonder. Obviously, as you got older, you probably were more aware of the things that were happening. And obviously, I'm sure you knew that as probably a young child, which is awful. But I mean, were there in terms of the amount of that your mom would drink? I mean, was it like a fifth a day,
Oh no,
or
my
was
mom
it
drank when it was drinking. So she went through phases of different things.
okay?
But when she was drinking, it was about a gallon of vodka a day,
Oh my
and
God.
only vodka because vodka you can't smell,
Yep.
Ah,
according to her.
My mom
I
was
mean,
a
but
fan of the vodka too. Yeah, that
after
was
a
hers.
gallon, I'm like,
Yeah.
bitch, you smell like
Oh, well,
you
you
drink a
could
whole
smell
gallon.
it. Well, I mean, what you don't realize is that's a whole gallon of alcohol. It comes out of your pores. I don't
Right.
think
Yeah.
I don't think I'll ever get over the
The
smell
smell.
of my
Oh
mother.
yeah,
I mean, it
yeah.
just, it would make you sick to your stomach. It was like a kind of like a diabetic, just that sweet. Ugh, it's just
Right.
terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
But
That's
like
such
then she
that's
would drug phases, whether it be prescription, and then she would go through like hardcore drugs, street drugs.
Oh, did she? I
Um,
didn't know that actually.
yeah, she did crack and things like that.
Mm,
That's after her doctor was no longer like he retired.
right.
So like her, and then they started shutting down the pill mills, and I was also a huge enabler. I made runs for her. I didn't want my mom sick. She had a mental hold on me, like,
Yeah.
why do you want me to sit here and suffer like this? And I led into all of that because I just wanted my mom to love me.
Yeah.
So
Sure. Yep.
whatever attention, whatever I have to do, even if it's breaking the law, whatever I have to do just to get that feeling, okay, I did something for her, so now she loves me. Which led
Right.
into later relationships doing the same thing. Like if I don't do for them, they won't love me.
Right.
Right.
Which, that's a whole that's another podcast. But
Where, so when you were there ever instances where you were enabling your mother, where you felt like you were put in harm's way?
oh
Just
God,
yeah.
yeah.
situational. Well, yeah. I mean,
I mean, one time I went to a crack house to get pills, and because the pills were not the kind that you could melt down, they had a coating on them. Then the two girls or one again a fist fight, and then
oh Lord.
you know, cops showing up, and I'm like sitting here with a bag full of pills, and
Mm,
all this for my mama who's at home on the couch.
Right. Right.
Like I'm by myself.
Oh
Like,
my Lord. Holy cow.
yeah.
but yes, there was. I mean, she from the time I was little, she would send me in a taxi cab to the pharmacy. So
Wow.
I mean, that alone, she put me in danger, but I don't think she meant to.
Right.
She tried
Sure.
in every way possible to protect me in the way that she thought she was doing. And I don't want to speak ill of her in a way like she was this monster because she
Right.
wasn't.
Right.
Like she wouldn't on a sober mind, sober day, clear headed, my mom would not allow
Yes.
anything to happen to me.
Right.
Now, my mom fogged with whatever alcohol, drugs, whatever it may be, she can't even see me.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I can't
You're
expect her
literally
to
a
protect
mule,
me.
like a drug
Yeah.
mule. You're a mule.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
it is interesting too to hear about your mom because it sounds like she was a high performing individual. I mean, this
Oh,
she
yeah.
sounds
Oh,
like an
she was
incredibly smart
beautiful.
woman. Right. Right.
Yeah.
And I wonder too how much
And
of
the
that.
best functioning addict.
Mm.
Nobody knew.
Oh wow.
Like she could be high as hell, but nobody would know but me. And I'm like, oh God,
Wow.
don't
Well,
spoil
you
your
go through, I
speech.
mean, there's phases that you go through. I mean, my mom definitely, you just thought "Ugh, she ripped it up really good on Friday night. And then Friday becomes Wednesday. And, it
Right.
just keeps on
Yeah.
going, But yeah, I mean, there's phases. I remember my mom being a lot of fun when she was younger with my dad and having
Yeah.
parties. And, I didn't realize what she was doing. When I was
I
at
mean,
school, I remember I would call her to come pick me up, and she'd be like, I can't. I
Oh
can't.
right.
Like you're
Because
sick.
sure.
I haven't worn this off yet. You
yeah.
You
know.
My mom
know
was my brownie scout leader,
Yeah.
but just high on
My
Oxycontin.
mom was too.
that's incredible. So
Yep.
even though she was an addict, she was still there for you in many ways at events and things that were
Yep.
important to you, that things that
It
you were
was,
doing in your
she
life that
hid
she
it.
was there.
Yeah, she hit the prescription abuse because so when my mother had me, she had a blood clotting disorder called May Turner syndrome.
Okay.
All of her veins shut down her left side of her body, and they had to
Oh,
do a
wow.
bypass so that and branch the main artery on the right leg to the left to give it flow. My mom worked a very hard job on concrete floors and worked 12-hour days, 6 days a week,
Wow.
and would come home with a humongous swollen leg and be in so much pain. And she could only do that for so long. And there would be only so many pain pills she could eat before that part has now taken over. And
Okay.
that's kind of, I mean, that's, but she was beyond smart. I mean, she's so successful.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, she taught me you have to work twice as hard as a man, and you have to do things right the first time. You don't repeat yourself. Like, I mean, she was very taught me so much independence and how to be able to stand on my own 2 feet no matter what is going on in life and no matter what support I have. So I'm thankful for that from her.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure that's not something that comes easy to many people, to feel that way, to have that understanding of what it takes to be successful.
Yeah.
And it's amazing that she was able to give that to you, with as many challenges as she was facing. Um, Obviously, and I think the answer to this is yes, but, I've heard stories about, for example, you know, children, um, women sometimes who had anorexia growing up. And so that kind of shaped what they do in their professional life. They're a
Mm.
registered dietitian, masters of public health, whatever the case may be. And I wonder how your experiences with your mom have shaped what you're doing now and what you hope to be doing um, to help other people.
Well, my mom, I mean, her belief of me was that I was going to be her. Um, she didn't think that there was any way, shape, or form that I could break any cycle and that I wouldn't end up in the exact same way in shape and form of her. And she is everything I aspire not to be.
Right.
um,
Yeah.
I take the best parts of her and I throw away the bad parts. And I feel a lot of empathy for my mom. I didn't walk in her
Yeah.
shoes. I did not live that life. My mom lived a hard fucking life.
Miserable.
And
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine the depth of her pain
Yeah.
from the life that she lived, being beaten by an addict and a mother that never protected her. And I mean, my mom went through tremendous amounts of abuse, sexual abuse, mental abuse. I mean, so I stand in no judgment of how
Right.
she handled it because she wasn't able to get the tools that I found accessible to me. Like, if I hadn't have found that, where would I be right now? And that's what I mean with our mental health system. Like, a lot of places don't know that you can just spit in a tube and send it off, and it'll tell you what antidepressant you should be taking for your genetic makeup instead of putting these people on 26 different medications, wasting
Mm.
everybody's time.
Right.
And getting them
Okay.
addicted to those.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, you're giving somebody benzos that their genetic makeup isn't made up for that. Plus, they carry this addictive gene. Like,
Right.
the entire system is just set up for someone to fail and just repeat and come back
Wow.
instead of heal and fix and then move on and live. Like,
Right.
that's never the goal. It's just, let's keep this rotating door.
Yeah.
And
Money in their pocket.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous.
That's
Because
incredibly
there's
well said.
so
Yeah.
many ways to heal that they don't offer.
Yeah.
Wow. So ultimately, what you're studying for now, what will you be doing when you sort of get your accreditation or finish school or whatever it is that you're doing now?
Well, what I plan to do is open my own practice,
Okay.
working on dealing with hypnotherapy and doing mind and body healing versus a medicational part.
Okay.
Not so much talk therapy. People have to understand how the mind works. That is the first thing. If you
Right.
don't understand how it works, and you're never going to be able to change what your habits and how long it takes to change a habit, and no one's giving them the information that they need to know that they can do this without swallowing a pill.
Right.
And like I told my last psychiatrist when I stopped taking my medication, I said, look, I don't have an imbalance of chemicals. I've had a hard fucking life. So we're not going to pump my head full of this so I can be numb and feel none of it.
Yeah.
And I'm going to figure out a way to deal with it. So you take all these pills and I'm going to go figure out. And, you know, that's what I feel like all people should be. Okay. On a case by case basis.
Right.
Don't
There's people that have a
people-
chemical imbalance. Yes.
Correct. Please do not stop taking your medication without talking to your psychiatrist,
Right.
general practitioner first.
Right.
But for me personally, I knew that I wasn't depressed. I was sad.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a huge difference. I'm sad. I have an absent father. I'm sad. I have an addict mother. I'm sad. I don't have any family support. I was a young mother. I missed out on young adulthood. I got a GED. I never got to walk across the stage. Like, I'm sad. I don't things aren't messed up here. I'm very smart. And a big thing was I failed school all the time. Well, I failed school not because I was dumb like I've always thought, but because I had the home life I had. There was no one there making sure I was doing my homework or helping me with my homework. When I got home, I had to make sure that I did everything that I was supposed to do for my mother.
Right.
I wasn't worried about my homework.
Yep.
No.
Because if
And
not,
she wasn't worried about your homework. I mean, there was nobody to kind of, yeah.
I got
I mean,
ISS one time for signing her name, and the teacher was like, you signed it in Crown, we can tell. And I'm like, yeah, I did sign her name. What do you want me to do? She's been drunk, passed out for 3 days.
Wow.
Yeah.
Telling a teacher that, though, back at that time, they said nothing. Somebody should have been like, we should probably call somebody, like social services.
Yep.
They saw, I was so happy when they changed the lunch thing where all kids can get free lunch now, because even though my mom qualified for us to have reduced lunch, she didn't want to fill that out because you didn't do that. You didn't ask the government for anything. You starve first before you look like white trash. And
sorry.
No, I mean, that's true. Yeah, you don't want to,
Right.
First of all, that should
don't
be
ask for welfare.
that should be put on a T-shirt. I just need to say that. That's incredible.
But they changed it, and I'm like, these kids everybody's eating. And nobody gave a shit that every single day I went to that cafeteria, and someone had to notice that every day I didn't have a tray unless Sean shared mine.
Wow.
Shared his with
she would lick on the tater tots so he couldn't eat them.
I mean, sometimes. And I did also get suspended, and I want to reach out to this girl so bad for telling her that she was overweight, and it was all because I was just jealous that she had this perfectly packed lunch. It had nothing to do with her size. I was just mad that she got this amazing lunch every day and a note from a mom, and I was like,
sure, I'm sure it was.
They cut your sandwich in a heart, Who does that?
Brittany, I meant to ask, were your children, your mom was alive when your children were alive, how much did they see? Or did they just see your reaction to it? Were they actually around it?
No. Cameron, so there was a point in time where she was halfway sober when Cameron was younger. For a very short period of time, she was living with my uncle, so it was a supervised. I let her spend time with him one time while I was at work, and then my uncle, who was quadriplegic, can't do anything. He's in a wheelchair. Calls me up and says, hey, you might want to come get him. She's drunk, passed out, and he's colored all over her. And I get there, and my kid is Sharpie markered my mom, who's drunk, passed out, and I kick her. And I'm like, this is what you get. I hope it never comes off. And you will never watch my kid ever again.
Yeah.
And so after that, it was only supervised when I was around. She was never left alone with my kids. Cameron grew a bond with her, but the rest of my kids
don't really know.
Yeah.
I think that's my biggest regret, is that my children were there they saw everything. I mean, my mom lived with me, a lot, and they were, they were subjected to that because it was normal.
That's why
it was like
when
a normal thing for me to be going through this. And so my children were subjected to a lot that they should not have
Yeah.
been.
I mean, I just couldn't she did the most, gruesome attempts that I mean, still to this day, I fight night terrors, and
Mhm.
I would never want my child, any of them, to ever. So they never saw any of that or had to experience. They didn't even know the depth of her addiction or her. They knew about, her mental health and all of that.
Right.
They didn't. They don't know the details of her last attempt and her death. They don't know the details of much of any of the other attempts. Cameron knows a little bit more than most, but not the younger ones.
Well, he grew up with you, and I think that's what my Sean, I think
Right.
the same thing. I mean, they kind of grow up with you when you're
Right.
18,
Yep.
19 years old, having a child. They're kind of become
Yeah.
your buddy. But so I think, unfortunately, when you're a young mother and you have these
No,
mothers.
we did this together, kid. All right. We did
Yeah.
this.
Yeah. We survived it together. Right. Right. It's true.
Incredible.
But
I couldn't be prouder because he's headed on to become a doctor. So,
That's amazing.
and I did that all by
Awesome.
myself.
That's yeah. You should be proud of that.
I am.
I mean, it's amazing where you were and where you are now, and how far you've come. It's funny, just to go back on one thing you talked about, being 9 years old and finding your mother in a tub, where she, was making an attempt at suicide, and the fact that you knew how to do a tourniquet at 9.
Mm.
Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
from years of watching Law and Order with her.
oh, okay. I was like, I mean,
Dun,
the
dun.
fact,
I literally had to sit there every day.
I mean, when you during those times when you found her in those situations, did you feel panic, or was it just like, here we go
Well,
again? Did you focus on what you needed to do in that given moment? Obviously, you did, but how do you make those? How do you have that presence of mind and are able to make those decisions when you're 9 or 10
The
or 11?
psychiatrist has said that I disassociated outside of my body.
Okay.
Just let my subconscious handle the situation and took my conscious mind out of the situation to be able to survive it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think you have to do a lot of that. I mean, it's a fight or flight. You are surviving.
Right.
Yes.
Surviving the most important person in your life when you're young.
Yeah.
Right.
So, and it's so conflicting because you do have those moments of joy or love or affection or connection, whatever it is. And I think that's why we become such good enablers, because we're so wanting that. We just want that
or the
feeling.
overwhelming empaths we become, because
Yeah.
you can just feel everyone's feelings without them
Yeah.
saying anything, and you're like,
Oh,
I
yeah.
gotta fix you and you and you, and I know what you're
Oh
feeling.
yeah, it's true. You become a major nurturer, and you do. I think that's why I fell in love with Brittany so much when she was young. I just saw so much of my own self in her, and I was like, "What can I do? How can I?
Yeah.
How can I? How can I fix this?"
Yeah.
And I think that's what you do. You just find people. You find strays that are lost, and you try to. And I still do it.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, for me,
And that's a
hearing this-
beautiful thing, though.
Oh,
I mean, that is a beautiful thing coming out of, a
it
terrible
absolutely is.
situation that you
Yeah.
look at people and you read people and you listen to people. I mean, I mean,
Yep,
I'm
I can read
constantly-
between the lines. I'm like,
Yeah.
that is not what you mean.
yeah.
Go ahead, just say it. You know that's
Just say
not
it,
what
right.
you mean.
But you have to become that, because when you walk in a room, you have to know what the situation is. You have to
Oh, yeah.
know, okay, this is the role I'm playing now. This is what I got to be ready for. And just so much,
Anxiety.
it's just anxiety and anger and frustration. And there's nowhere to put that. But what I find so interesting, and I think this about Brittany, and I think about this about myself, is you have hope. And I feel like I am a glass half full kind of person, and how I can be that. And I think Brittany is that too. Of course, we all kind of, but I think Brittany's that too. And I think that's incredible to be able to kind of even feel that way when everything is so hopeless.
Yeah, I definitely find it easier now than ever. I'm, look at where I've come from and look at where I
Yeah.
am, and how could I not be happy with my situation? I'm
Oh,
not a
God, yeah.
child. I'm not under anybody's control. This is my life. These are my feelings, and nobody can touch them. So, and that's
And
a
if you
great
try,
saying
she'll
that
beat your
comes.
ass. No, I'm
Very
kidding.
true. I know. That's still very true.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
Especially when
it's
you call my best friend gay.
Yeah. I didn't call him gay. He called himself gay.
No, the girl on the bus called him gay, and he didn't tell me he was gay. And then I got kicked off
Oh.
the bus because I set her in her place because he wasn't gay, remember? And then down the line, he's gay. I got kicked off the bus, and you are gay.
She's a fierce defender of the people she loves.
Very true.
As
Yes.
it should be. That's amazing. I have to say this because I've known Kelly as long as I have, and I realize, Brittany, I don't know you that well. I just met you tonight on this podcast episode, but I can see how the universe had to bring you two together at some point. Like it would,
Yep.
I mean, it was predestined, right? It was meant to
Yeah.
be. So,
Well, I think it's one of those things that I do feel like Brittany is one of my kids. I love her like she's one of my kids. She's my mini. That's what I always say. She's so much like me, but I think I saw in her what I saw in myself at that age, and the fact that we're sitting here doing a podcast with smiles on, talking about our childhood that was horrendous.
Yeah.
Parts of it could be horrendous. I fortunately had family beyond my mom. Brittany, she did it herself. She really did it herself. And I don't want to compare mothers being worse, but her mother was much worse. I don't know. She had people that she would go to that were equally as damaged as she was. My mother was fortunate enough to have a family that was really solid people. And I think that's probably what made hers not as bad. And Brittany's mom, she just didn't. And then Brittany didn't have those examples also of, of what a family's supposed to be for each other and how we're supposed to take care of each other. I mean, she literally flying on her own for a very, very long time. And the woman she is, I couldn't be more proud of her. Okay, now I'm going to get my feelings.
I know.
Yeah, don't do that.
I had to start it, and then I didn't.
I
have
know.
any
What the
tissues.
fuck? I wasn't going to do anything.
I gotta tell you, I might have to cut that part out because as a
Thanks.
man,
Oh, your part where you got stifled? No, you do not.
Yeah. No, I won't. I'll
No.
leave it
Real
in.
men cry. I love
There
it when
you
my
go.
husband cries. Put on a
So-
dog commercial and
Okay,
he's
see?
dead.
See, I'm that complete opposite.
Oh.
I'm like,
Really?
why are you so? I'm like, why are you so emotional? Nothing's happening.
So
Uh.
I would probably ask both of you the same question, but for anyone who out there who's struggling with a loved one's addiction, I mean, what advice or encouragement would you offer them?
I
Okay.
would say get strong, put on your big girl pants, and set the boundaries.
Yes.
You have to protect yourself, and they're not going to help themselves till they're ready to help themselves, no matter how much you try. And sometimes them hitting rock bottom and you setting those boundaries and them losing everything is what they need to become what you need them to become.
Or
and
they
that
won't,
time-
but it's still
or
not going
they-
to affect.
right.
It's not going to. You're not going to be
Right,
an addict,
right.
co-addict. You know what I mean? Like that's not
Yeah.
going to be your life.
Right. And you are only responsible for you and your feelings. You only have control over your actions. You have nothing to do with what other people decide to or choose to do or not do or say or not say, and you have to understand that anybody can do and say what they want. The only
Yeah.
person that you can control is you, and you're
Yes.
responsible for your feelings.
And you know, I totally 1,000% agree. I wish I had done that a million times over again. I wish I had understood I was an only child, but Brittany she had a brother, but brother was smart enough to kind of stay away from it as much as he could. And it really landed on Brittany. But, you know, my mom was, when I went to the girls' weekend this weekend, all everybody talked about is my mom. Oh, my mom, your mom was the best and all this kind of stuff, because she could be the best.
Yep.
She was a wonderful person with a mental illness and an addiction. And I don't wish that on my worst enemy.
Sure.
And it's very difficult, but I think talking to other people and being honest and open. Listen, this becomes our secret. We don't tell anything. And,
Right.
that's what I mean about enabling. You don't tell everybody what's going on. You're ashamed, you're embarrassed. There's so many
I
people out
mean,
there that have as soon as I did let it out, oh my God, all the people that are like, me too. Like,
Right. Yeah.
it doesn't need to be a secret. You need to look for those people that can help you.
I was raised by, what happens in our household stays in our household and doesn't leave this
Right.
household. And I wish that rebellion part of me would have said, fuck this. This isn't even a household, and called social services or,
Right.
myself.
I wish I had done that for you. That's a huge regret of mine because I was still in that mindset. I was still a
Yeah. I mean, but I still had
enabler.
hope. I still had that hope that one day it'll be fine.
Yeah.
Like, she'll get better. But, her
Yeah.
demons were the best of her, and she was stuck in her own ways. And unfortunately, she didn't want it.
Yeah.
She wanted, I feel like she liked the attention. She liked living in that space. And I mean, it was
She was good at it.
sad. Yeah.
My mom was really good at it.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, keep the hope, but talk to people. Go to, go to your school. If you're younger, talk to your friends, talk to your friends' parents. You can't sit in it by yourself because nothing's going to change. The only thing that can change is you. That's it. That's the only thing that can change is what you're going to do, how you're going to handle it, what you're going to, the help that you're going to seek. That's the only thing that's going to change, because you cannot change that.
Yeah. And you can always dial 988. And even if you're not feeling suicidal, you can still call that number and reach out just to have an outlet anonymously. If you don't feel comfortable reaching out to someone just so you know that you're not alone, and things can be different, and there's people here for you, and it will pass.
That's great advice. I think people easily forget that, and the fact that there are people willing to help. Sometimes even a stranger, right?
Yep.
So
Oh,
I think that's
absolutely.
yeah. So Brittany, let me ask you this, and this doesn't necessarily have to be a final question. We can certainly keep going, but I was just wondering, and Kelly, this is probably a question for you too, but I'll ask Brittany first. Brittany, how do you honor your mom's memory in your life today? Is there any one specific thing, or is it?
Well, there's
Is
lots of things. I I got a flag outside for her. I wear shirts for her. I'm, tatted up for her.
Wow, that's yep.
My son has a matching tattoo. But I honor her by breaking the cycle for her that she wasn't strong enough to do. I'm doing it, and
Yep.
I'm doing it in her name and her honor, because I know the beginning of my life that was her intention. So I'm just going to finish it.
Good for you.
That's beautiful.
That is beautiful. Yep.
That is really
Kelly?
beautiful. Um, I, I love I do try my best not to sit in the stuff. I try to look for the future, and I look at my grandson and I think, oh God, she would have just been the best, great grandmother because as long as she was sober, which she was the last 8 years of her life, and that's the person that I wish had met. But my mom was so caring. She'd taken strays, and I feel like she gave me that as well. She was so empathetic to other people and wanted to sit and talk to them. Brittany knows when she was sober, she was amazing. And
Yep.
when she wasn't, there's nobody that hated her more than she hated herself. And I'm not gonna hate her. I hate that what she was, but I tried to just all those wonderful qualities about her. I tried to do the same thing, and the fact that she didn't die from her demons, I'm so eternally grateful for that. And it brings me so much joy. And that was, but again, she was very, very sick and, all that kind of stuff. But I'm very grateful. And so that's what I honor is the person I know she always was underneath all of that stuff. And so that's what I think about. I don't dwell in all of this. I don't talk about this a whole lot because
Sure.
I've moved on from it. I want to move on from it. I don't want that ugliness to be my life. I want to learn from it. I want to grow from it. And so, I think that it's really beautiful that I'm able to have hope. I'm able to see a good future, and I'm not an addict. That's probably the best way I can honor her.
Yep.
Amazing.
And like my tattoo says, if love could have saved you, you would have lived forever.
Oh,
Oh my
love
gosh.
that. Oh gosh,
So
I love that.
both of them were so loved. I mean,
Yeah, yeah,
so loved. Because
Yeah.
when they were good, they were great.
yeah,
Mm.
yeah. So
Well, wow. I mean, I just, well, Brittany, thank you for sharing your
Yeah.
story. Number one, thank you for doing it on short notice.
yes,
Oh, my pleasure.
I've been thinking about doing something like this, and I was like, gotta be B.
Yeah, I mean, this is a true testament to, everyone has a story worth telling. So, thank you for doing it. Thank you for doing it on short notice. Thank you for elevating this this fucking dumpster fire of a podcast. Because I don't know. I'm sure you might know the history. I mean, Kelly and I tried to do this once before, and it just didn't work out. Maybe it was timing. Who knows? But I think I think I mean I don't know what kind of podcast Brittany you listen to, and Kelly, you've talked about some of the ones you listen to. I listen to a lot of different ones, and sometimes it gets old where you're just hearing celebrities talk about whatever. I
Right.
think it's great to get real stories, stories worth telling. So, Brittany, thank you again.
Thank you, B.
Hopefully, I can call you a friend now.
Yes.
I don't know. You probably don't know all of my crazy, and you may not want to, which is probably.
Oh yeah, you will, because he's one of my best
I'm
friends, so
gonna
you
call
know
you.
that he's good.
But yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. Both of you are amazing, strong women, and I loved hearing your story. So
Oh, thank
Thank
you.
you
It
very
was my
much, B.
pleasure.
thank you.
I mean, I'm glad I was a part of it, and let's get the word out there that it can
Yeah.
be different.
I agree.
Brittany, what again? The place that you went to, just so we can
Star
make sure to share.
Foundation, and it's starfoundation.org, and you can go online and submit an application. They've got different retreats, scholarships available. So just reach out, and I know that whole process is transformative. So I would
Thank
take
you.
advantage of it.
Absolutely. Thank you.
That's awesome.
My
Thank you.
pleasure.
Thank you so much. So I will just, if you want to stick around, Brittany, please do. One of the things we try to do is just do a little bit of shameless self-promotion at the end of the podcast here. So we are, in fact, holietrollers@gmail.com, Facebook at Holie Trollers with Kelly and David. We're on YouTube, although I don't think we've uploaded any episodes yet. We're a little behind, but we're at YouTube. We're at Holie Trollers. And Google Voice 240-415-9247. Look, if anyone's out there listening and you have a story that you want to tell, we would love to listen. Hopefully, Brittany, maybe we can check back in with you at some point, and you can come back on and maybe give us an update, let us know how your studies are going, and where you go from here.
Definitely.
And then once you hang that shingle out and you're legit, I may have to
Yeah, we'll both hit
sign
you
up
up.
for some of that.
Do I get any discount? Do I get a discount?
Yes.
Okay.
So for those one or two listeners we may have, that's episode 2. And hopefully I need to do my part in promoting this a little bit more, as Kelly would gladly tell me. So, I mean, if there's nothing else anyone wants to say, we can just what did Bill O'Reilly say in that rant? Where he's screaming about, fuck it, we'll do it live.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. He's like, I'm trying to think what he says at the very end to play us out, whatever. Anyway.
Yeah.
Brittany, thank you.
Yeah,
very
thank you,
much
Bree.
for doing this.
I love you.
We really do appreciate it.
Love you too.
And okay, that's episode
All right,
2.
that's
and,
it.
Until next time.
Next time.
Bye.
Bye.
We will see you. Bye-bye.
Kelly and David, they're on the mic. Talking about things you gotta like.